what will we really be talking about today? We'll have a brief introduction. Who am I? What gives me the gives me the right to speak about this? Um, and then we'll talk about a theme of this presentation, what I want to call the golden thread that will tie everything together. And it's really about building habits, yeah, for your financial journey. Everything starts with the habits that you intentionally try to incorporate into your life. Then we'll move to a very interesting term called financial freedom. I think young people they're always trying to understand what financial freedom is. They all would like to be at a point where they can say they have achieved financial freedom. But we'll also look at the overlap between the individual and business perspectives. Even businesses can achieve financial freedom. It's not only individuals that would achieve that. And then we'll look at how you can work towards financial freedom. It's a three-step process, but within there are a bunch of activities under each step. So we'll walk through those. And throughout the presentation, um, we'll look at a bunch of tools. I've prepared a bunch of tools that you can use throughout your journey towards financial freedom. If allowed, or if there's a need for these, I will share these after the presentation, and people can use them for their journeys. So, in terms of an introduction, as Belinda said, I'm Kevin Augustine Abuka. I currently work as Manager Investment Advisory with ASIGMA Capital Advisory Services Limited. I've been there since 2019. My day to day is really around corporate finance kind of work. So you're thinking of activities like building financial models for businesses, conducting investment research, project preparation. So businesses or private actors or government projects, they come in and they're looking to do, let's say, feasibility studies. They're looking to conduct investment appraisals. So project preparation is essentially all the work you do before you decide that you actually want to go into a business. So you have to think about a business plan. You have to think about where you're going to get the money. You have to think about what's the cost of money you're going to borrow, or who is going to give you an equity investment. So all that is work that we do on a day-to-day. Going into the reason we're here today, I mentioned earlier that we would talk about a golden thread that is bringing everything together. So I saw someone say, what's the topic for today? The topic is around mastering your finances. Now, mastering your finances, achieving financial freedom is a journey. It takes time, and actually, a lot of people will tell you that financial freedom is a moving target. Yeah. Um, Perspectives change, context changes. One day you're single, the next day you're married with kids. Suddenly, that number, yeah, the magic number to achieve financial freedom changes. So it's a moving target. But importantly, and especially for the youth, it's very important to know and to understand the fact that progress is not linear. Um, it's not always linear, but sometimes our expectations are around linear kind of progress. So you want to give and take. You want to make a sacrifice and get an equal reward almost immediately. But it's always important to know that uh, a lot of times in life, the effort that we take to achieve different things actually moves along an exponential path rather than a linear path. What does that mean? You have to put in the work, and the work takes time, and you have to be very patient. You have to be very disciplined along the way throughout that journey. Do not expect instant results. Um, so, tying into that, when we look at what is currently on the screen, um, we start off by saying the road to mastering and taking control of your finances requires intentional changes, an intentional change of habits in your daily life. Um, there's a book by James Clear called Atomic Habits that I think I would encourage everyone to read, everyone who can access it, as they embark on this journey towards um, mastering their finances. Some of the key points in this book are tiny improvements compounded over time will lead to remarkable results. Some of you might have heard of the Kaizen principle, whereby all you need to do is avoid putting pressure on yourself and make small improvements every day. Build that good habit day by day. Take your time around building the habit. Do not rush and do not expect instant results. Another key point there is the valley of latent potential. Um, some of you have probably gone to the gym, and the first week you go to the gym, obviously you have these goals. You want maybe six packs, you want to tone your body, you want to build your muscles. So week one goes down and you can't see a difference. Week two, you still can't see a difference. Week three, week four, you can't see a difference. And a lot of the times, people make the joke around gyms filling up in January and then emptying by the time you get to February. This is because so people are putting in the effort. Yeah, you're going to gym, you're doing your reps, you're doing your sets, the push-ups, the dumbbells, lifting everything, but um, you're not immediately seeing results. You're not immediately seeing the muscles that you want to see. And what happens is um, because humans are wired for immediate gratification, you want instant rewards now rather than later. A lot of the times we break the habit. Yeah. So you give up on gym, it's not working, or you're frustrated, and maybe you drop off your initial resolution for the year. Why is it important to think about this? Um, for most of us, we are not blessed to start investing huge amounts of, say, 10 million shillings, 20 million shillings, 100 million shillings. Most of us will start with 100,000. Most of us will start with maybe 1 million shillings. Yeah. And a lot of the time, when you save up that money and then you check back after a month, maybe if you're lucky, you've made 10% on that money. 10%, actually not 10%, maybe 1%. Yeah, after a month, 1% of 1 million shillings is just 10,000 shillings. So when you look back and you see that the 1 million shillings you saved has only made you 1 million 10,000, suddenly it doesn't make sense anymore. Yeah, the frustration starts to creep in, and people at this point forget a very strong, um, a very strong phenomenon that's called compounding. Um, Compounding has been described as the eighth wonder of the world. So what this is saying is tying into the fact that growth is not linear. Growth can be, and growth is exponential. So the start is always going to be hard. The start is going to feel slow. 1 million is going to make you 10,000. But what is important is for you to stick to your guns, for you to reinvest the same 1 million 10,000. The incremental money that you make every month will keep on increasing until you'll get to a point where the rate at which the money that you're saving increases is almost twice as quick as it was the first month you did it. So what am I stressing here? Before we start talking about mastering your money, expenses, saving, the first thing is habit. You're going to have to build habits. You're going to have to build intentionality, discipline, and you're going to have to also have a lot of patience. Yeah. Um, so the key takeaway here is you have to push through that valley of latent potential, that period where it feels like all the effort you're putting in is not actually yielding any results. You have to trust that it is. Yeah. Because by making good financial habits, by building up good financial habits, you will start to see the results in the long term. And that is really what that graph um, on the right side is talking about. So to further emphasize that point, I will just share something different. All right, so I hope you can still see my screen. What we have here is just a scenario. And what this scenario is looking at is um, is really a saving scenario. So in this scenario, someone has put 1 million shillings into a unit trust. I hope everyone is aware of what a unit trust might be, but just to simplify it, we could think of it as putting money away, saving money, and that money is going to earn you 10% at the end of every year. So, for example, if you look at row 7, you put away 1 million shillings, and then at the end of that year, year 1, you have 1,105,000 shillings, because your interest is 10.5%. Now, the interesting part to monitor here is the fact that the day you put the 1 million shillings, you essentially have one times your investment. Yeah, you have 1 million, and it will take you all the way up to 7 years to get two times your investment, approximately two times. So you have 1 million shillings, you put it away. In this scenario, you're not even adding any additional savings to this. You just have 1 million shillings, and it's compounding year on year, right? So it takes you 7 years to double the 1 million shillings to get 2 million. But now, beyond that, it will only take you roughly 4 years to get to 3 million shillings. Beyond that, it will take you roughly 2 years to get to 4 million shillings. Beyond that, again, roughly just over 1 year and a few months to get to 5 million shillings. And that's the logic continues all the way up to 6 million shillings. So, what are we trying to say again? The beginning, the beginning is always slow, the beginning is always tough. But when you stick to it, when you stick to your process, you'll start to see very exponential growth. You'll start to be rewarded for the perseverance that you put in at the start. Again, the theme here is to say that um, build habits around finance, mastering your finance, being intentional about your finance. And then once you build those habits, stick to them. Survive that initial phase where you feel like your effort is being wasted, push through that phase, and eventually you'll start to be rewarded for your efforts. All right, moving back to our presentation. All right, so what is financial freedom? From a personal perspective, you can think of it as having enough savings, investments, and cash on hand to afford the lifestyle that you want for yourself and for your family. From a business perspective, you are really thinking of a business that generates stable profits, covers all its expenses, is able to reinvest in its growth, and it also has a safety net, a financial buffer for when maybe the economy is rough, um, uh, um, and the business takes a hit. Yeah. So, what's the intention of this slide? The intention of this slide is to show you that um, you cannot, especially for people who are having a small business, you cannot separate the personal perspective from the business perspective. a lot of the times, especially for small young businesses, um, when you are not clearly tracking um, the personal expenses, the personal expenditures, and the business expenditures, these things tend to overlap. So you'll find that the same money that you use to buy some supplies for your business, you could pick from the same pool to pay school fees for your child. Yeah, there is that sort of mix of those monies. Yeah, so you get to see that the personal perspective and the business perspective around financial freedom come down to building the same kinds of habits. Yeah. So if we think about cash flow is king. Having positive cash at the end of the month, after you've received your salary and you've planned for your expenditures, do you still have some money left over? Same for your business. After you sell your goods, after you sell the paint, someone from I think Zimba, um, someone was mentioning they had a business called Zimba. After you sell your product, do you have enough money left over um, at the end of the month? Yeah. So again, the perspective is the same. You cash flow is king for the person, for the business. You want something positive at the bottom line. Emergency funds for stability. Can you can you confidently say that you have about 3 to 6 months of your living expenses saved up somewhere? Yeah. This is in case you lose your job. This is in case you have a medical event, a medical crisis, a medical emergency. There are always jokes on Twitter that a lot of young people are one medical emergency away from poverty. And where does this joke come from? It's the fact that a lot of people do not actually have emergency funds saved away. And these are funds that you should be disciplined enough not to tap into on the regular, but only when you have, let's say, your car has an accident, when maybe your child is sick. That's when that fund comes into play. So, do you have that money saved away or not? Same for your business. Do you have a safety buffer? Do you have 3 to 6 months of operational runway, operational expenses? If that means 3 to 6 months of rent, are you able to say that you have um, 3 to 6 months of rent saved away for when um, a particular month is hard, for when you maybe make very little sales in a particular month and you're not able to cover your rent? Do you have a safety net? Debt management. The key here is avoiding high interest debt. People need debt is not our enemy, debt is a friend. But we have to be very intentional about how we manage it. So everyone needs debt. The person needs debt. Businesses also need debt. Um, it allows you to do a lot more than you probably would if you only relied on the cash that you've raised maybe from yourself and family and friends. Yeah, the equity investment. So the key here is to avoid high interest debt or paying it off as soon as possible. That is the case for the person, the individual. It's the case for businesses. And then diversification. If you have a job, you have one job, um, maybe think of a side hustle, maybe think of ways to get passive income. Start investing some of the money that you earn into um, uh, maybe different avenues of investment. This could be unit trust, this could be a friend's business, things like that, things that can allow you to start making some passive income on the side. Just diversifying your income and making sure that all your eggs aren't in one basket. This is also the same for a business. If you've been selling apples for the last 3 years, maybe it's time you think about something supplementary. Maybe if you're selling shoe polish, maybe start selling shoe brushes as well. Yeah, just to make sure that you have additional revenue streams, you have additional products. And again, all your eggs are not in one basket. And then finally, investing for long term growth. A lot of us will eventually, all of us will eventually retire. Yeah, whether that is from our jobs, whether that is stepping away from managing our businesses. So, how are you investing for that long term possibility? when you think of someone who has a job, investing towards retirement means by the time you're 55, 60, do you have enough money that you'll be able to use um, from the point when you're 61 years old up to the point when you pass on? Yeah, what will you leave your family? And how are you starting to plan for that today? Yeah. Same for a business. Eventually, um, you've started your business, but at some point you're going to want to step away from the business. And when you're stepping away from the business, you want to have invested in systems that will allow that business to flourish with or without you. Yeah. So when you make a profit, yeah, when you make a killing in a particular month, do you take all of this profit out of the business or do you reinvest towards innovating within your business? Maybe you want to innovate around a new product. Yeah, maybe you want to innovate around a marketing strategy. Yeah. So again, these two perspectives overlap. And this slide is really to show you that how these overlap and how you can think through these different perspectives, whether that is for your personal finances or whether that is for your business's finances. The key things here, cash flow is your king. You want it positive. Have an emergency fund, manage your debt, diversify your income, and be intentional about investing for long-term growth. So now we'll move to working towards financial freedom. Um, the first step we'll talk about here is managing and tracking your expenses. Now, this first step in particular is one that is going to, I would say this is usually the hardest one for people, simply because it requires um, discipline, it requires creating a habit. And as we saw earlier, creating habits often come with a lot of challenges. Yeah. Whether this is around not seeing immediate results, whether this is about maintaining the discipline and sticking to what you made as your personal resolution at the beginning of the year. A lot of the times people fail at this stage because making a budget is not easy. First of all, you have to examine yourself as you make a budget. Um, Sometimes you're going to be embarrassed. Some of you will have known or will have experienced days when maybe you had a night out the previous evening, and the next morning you do not want to check your phone. You do not want to check the receipts. Yeah. So we're lucky that today our banks can be able to send us messages around how much we've spent um, on different things. So you've had those moments where you wake up, the previous night maybe you went over and above what you should have spent, and you convince yourself that if you don't look at the damage that you did, everything will be okay, right? So making budgets and tracking budgets, it becomes very hard because of this, because people do not want to do that self-examination. People do not want to judge themselves. But it's really important. You need to find a way to efficiently track your finances. And you need to make that something simple. You want to do something that will take maybe just 10 minutes of your time every time that you do it. Yeah, we're going to look at a way that you can make a budget. And then once you make that budget, you need to start to categorize your expenses. You need to start thinking about what are my needs, what are my wants, and what goes into my savings and investment categories. I would recommend that those three are the overarching areas that you consider: needs, wants, and then savings. Yeah. And then you need to start optimizing. My recommendation, and this has always brought a lot of contention and arguments with my friends, is 50% of your income on needs, 30% on wants, and 10 to 20% on savings. I'll give an example here. So, uh, a lot of the times, again, because we want to see things move quickly, we want immediate results, you'll find young people pushing themselves beyond what is optimal. So let's give an example. Maybe you make from your business or from your work, you make 1 million shillings a month. Yeah. By this recommendation, you'd spend about 50% of that, 500,000 of that on your needs. Yeah. We'll see what the needs are. And then you'd spend maybe 30% on your wants. So maybe as an example, needs could be something like rent. Wants could be something like going out with your friends. And then obviously 10 to 20% on savings. Yeah. Where are you saving that money? Hopefully that is a high interest generating account. So a lot of people will say saving 20% is too little. Yeah, I need to be saving 50%. I need to be saving 50% of my income. So a lot of the times you are able to move these targets around, but you'll find that it gets easier to do that the more your income grows. How much can you realistically, is it realistic to say that I'm making 1 million shillings and I want to save 50% of it? I want to save 500,000. That only leaves you with another 500,000. And maybe you're going to have to pay rent, you're going to have to buy food, and you're going to have to you use transport to get to work. You're going to find that the 500,000 is not sufficient. And what is that going to do? You're going to end up in a scenario where you have 500,000 saved up, but you're now borrowing another 500,000 just to get through the month. And if you know the different rates within this economy, you will know that most times the rate at which you're saving is going to be lower than the rate at which you're borrowing money. So over time, you're actually in a net deficit. Yeah. So it's important to be honest with yourself as you come up with these numbers. My personal recommendation is as you grow, the amount that goes towards savings and investments does not need to be that high. It's fine to start with 10% or 20% of your salary. It's fine. It feels like it's little, it feels like you're not doing enough, but the actual challenge is doing 10 to 20% over a 12-month span. A lot of the times, the people who tell you that saving 10% is little, a lot of the times, those people will fail to have 10% over 12 months at the end of the year. So as an example, if they are saving, if they make 1 million shillings and they save 10%, so that's 100,000 every month. A lot of the times, people who tell you that saving 10% is too little will not even have 1.2 million shillings in savings at the end of the year. Why? This is because they are setting very aggressive targets. Be honest with yourself, set targets that you can handle, and you'll eventually see the results at the end of the year. So what tools do I personally use for managing my finances? I have a phone app that I use. And what this app allows me to do is to budget as well as to track the expenses as they come through. So my budget is essentially setting what my desired spend would be over a month. And then eventually I track the expenses over 2 days, over 3 days, what have I spent my money on? Yeah, and I'm able to fill this out within the app. If you look to the right of your screen, it's talking about housing. Yeah, so TV, rent, electricity, internet, telephone. How much are you spending on that? So it's important to set a budget at the start of the month, but it's also important to track how you actually spend the money when the month comes to the end. So, how are you going to do this? When you pay for the electricity, yes, you budgeted 50,000, but if you are tracking the expenses day in, day out, you might find that at the end of the month, you actually spent 40,000 on the electricity. So, the app that I recommend for this is called Buddy. Um, Anyone who's interested in using this app can scan the QR code on the screen and get access to it. It's available on iOS. It's also available um, on Android. So you can be able to tap into that. The other option is you can build an Excel or a Google Sheet to help you with this. What's the advantage of taking this approach? You are able to customize it to your personal specifications. You're able to have a lot more control to the different line items and the different ways you want to track your finances. So, yes, I personally use a combination of the two. I use Microsoft Excel for my budgets, and then I use the phone app to track my daily expenditures. Um, so at this point, I will just share my screen once again just to show you a template that I built around managing and tracking your expenses. All right, so again, I hope you can see my screen. This does not need to be complicated. When you make it complicated, you're likely to break the habit. You're likely to stop doing it. You're likely to stop managing your finances. So it can be as simple as possible. There are four numbers that you want to be on top of at any one point. You want to know your net income every month. Yeah. So that's right here. You want to know what your net income is every month. You want to know what your needs are. Yeah. And needs could be rent, transport, your phone bill, laundry, when you buy groceries, some money for healthcare in case you fall sick, electricity, water, internet, etc. You could, the list could be as long as you want it to be. Then you want to be on top of what your wants are. So once you're thinking about clothing, the assumption here is you have enough clothes at least right now. So any additional clothing is really um, uh, coming out of just the want for the clothing, but it's no longer a basic need. But again, this is dynamic. So for some people, clothing could be a basic need. For others, it could be a luxury. Wherever that falls, you can allocate it accordingly. So clothing, drinks, eating out, going to the gym, donations, movies, going to the cinema, gifts. Gifts could be the black tax that people are always talking about. So that family contribution you make every month. Yeah, you want to plan for that as well. Netflix for those of you who subscribe, Spotify for those of you who are very passionate about your music. Yeah. And then saving and investment. How much every month is going towards your emergency fund? How much is going towards clearing your debts? How much is going towards your self development? This could be uh, whether you're going to school for a professional course or whether you plan to. How much are you putting away every month towards that? Education. Um, Maybe you're saving up for a car. How much are you putting away every month? Um, Maybe you are putting some money into your business. Yeah, that's also counting as an investment every month. How much is that you're using to capitalize your business? Every month you want to pick some of your income from your salary and put it into your business just to help the business move around. So um, this is how. So the idea here is that every month you can go through this process, yeah, where you budget and then you allocate your money, and at the end of the month, you should be able to see whether you were able to live within the targets, whether you were able to, whether you exceeded. And if you exceeded, what was the challenge and how can you avoid that happening again? So on this particular part of the Excel, you'll see that split that we talked about, 50%, 30%, 20%, and then you have the actual. So in terms of needs, this particular scenario put 43% of their spend towards needs. They put 26% of their spend towards wants, and they put 30% towards savings and investment. So they actually saved more than they were targeting to save. And yeah, that's how they managed to utilize the income that they had made across that period. So when I'm going through this tool, it can seem like, okay, that's easy. I'll give you my personal testimony. Building this habit has not been easy. They've been, when I was starting out doing this, there were months where maybe you feel lazy or you're just tired because of the day you've had and you've not been able to actually do this. You postpone, you keep postponing, and you find that after one or two postponements, you drop the habit. The key thing here is the discipline to come, do this for March, do it for April, do it for May, all the way up to December. That the power that this gives you is the ability to strategize. Yeah, when you have this data, when you have your spend clearly presented before you, you're able to see where you're losing money, you're able to see where you're overspending, you're able to see where you can re-strategize. Maybe you're not saving enough, yet there's a lot more money left over at the end of the month. You put that towards your savings. Maybe you're not putting enough in your business. All that can come after you are looking at this kind of perspective for your planning purposes. Again, this particular tool will be available for anyone who will be interested in using it going forward. All right. So now, just to refocus us. So you've been at the stage where you want to start your investment, your journey towards financial freedom. First step we've seen is start to manage and track your expenses. Yeah. Make sure your expenses are not exceeding your incomes. How do you do that? You need that kind of visibility, the visibility on the tool that we've just looked at. Yeah, you need to be able to strategize around that. So once you do that for a while, maybe 1, 2, 3 months, you start to see benefits to that. And then you move on to step two. Step two is around building safety nets. This could be for your business. This could be for your personal finances. Yeah. So this step it's also challenging, but the point here is taking the patience, being patient, and working towards eventually hitting that goal. So the first thing in step two, as you build your safety net and pay off your debt, is creating a solution fund. Now, what is my solution fund? My solution fund is just 1 month of my essential costs. So on the previous slide, we saw something around needs, wants, and savings. So when I say a solution fund, what am I saying? I'm saying I want to um, I want to have 1 month worth of my needs expenses saved away. When I say saved away, I mean this is under lock and key. When you suddenly need to put money in your business, when you suddenly need to pay school fees, when you suddenly need to pay I don't know, for food at home, this is not the fund that you touch. You continue to touch your monthly earnings, whether this is from your business or from your salary, but you leave the solution fund alone. Yeah. Start by targeting 1 month of a solution fund. So in the previous example, if, for example, you are earning 1 million shillings and you've allocated 50% of that to go towards your needs, so 500,000 shillings, that is the target you want for your solution fund. You want to put 500,000 away, and this 500,000 could be in an interest generating account. It could be in a unit trust. There are very many unit trusts currently. That's, for example, Sanlam, UAP, Shilingi with Standard Chartered, very many. unit trust that you could consider. Or if you're not a unit trust person, you could do a fixed deposit, yeah, at your bank of choice. Put that money away. The good thing with fixed deposit, while the interest you earn might be lower than what you'd make from the interest you earn with a fixed deposit will be lower than what you make from a unit trust, but it also enforces discipline because a lot of the times you won't be allowed to withdraw the money, or you'll be charged a penalty for withdrawing the money. So in that case, you don't have to worry too much about your personal discipline. The bank will discipline you. So you could consider that fixed deposit or a savings account with your bank or a unit trust. Put that 500,000 away so that you have peace of mind. You know that if I lost my job, I have 500,000 that I can tap into, yeah, just to survive for that month as I look for another job. Something along those lines. Again, even for your business, your operating expenses, you want to have an idea of what your monthly operating expenses are. And once you know those, you want to be able to save at least 1 month away. Yeah, so that in case your business goes through a bad period, you're able to still run operations smoothly. The next step is paying off your high interest debt. Now, a lot of people want to save as they are also managing debt. So it's almost counterintuitive because, as I said earlier, some of the debt options available to us in this economy have very, very exorbitant rates. If you think about it month to month or year on year. So if you're saving at, let's say, 10% a year, but you're paying off debt of 20% a year, you're not really moving the way you think you are moving. Yeah. You're actually ending up in a net deficit at the end of that year. So it's important that before you embark on a very, very big saving venture, you first of all have your 1 month solution fund, and then you start intentionally paying off your high interest debt. This is for the individual, this is also for the business. Yeah, debt creates financial risk, debt creates a strain on the cash flows that you generate from selling your product. The faster you can do away with the debt, the better. On the right of the screen, I have some sample interest rates. Yeah, whether that is a salary loan from your bank that you'll be lucky to get under 2% a month, whether that is a circle loan that I think most circles will do about 3 to 5% a month. Yeah, whether that is a logbook loan for those of you who usually want to, those of you who have cars, you have logbook loans in the range of like 8%, 9%, 10% a month. This is translating to 96% a year in interest. Yeah. And then the final one is your convenient, in quotes, money lender friend. So a lot of you will probably have experienced um, engagements, or you've probably dealt with a money lender. And some of them are informal, some of them are formal. Yeah, they're charging you 10% a month, 15% a month. There is no way you're going to build towards financial freedom. It's not sustainable if you are paying off money is worth 15% every month. Yeah. Even if you have a saving somewhere, the net investment is negative because at the end of the day, the money you're spending to service your debt is way higher than the interest you're earning on your savings. So I'm trying to stress the point of um, it's very important to pay off your high interest debt, move to the next. So if you had all four of these, I rebuke it, but if you have all four of these loans, you start by making sure you clear off the money the money lender person, go to the logbook person, finish that, go to the circle person, and then eventually work off your salary loan. Yeah. And then once you've done that, you then aim bigger. Now you can save with bigger. targets. So you want to now move from a 1 month safety net to at least 3 or 6 months. I promise you, if you speak to if you went and did a mini survey uh, of about 10 of your friends, and you asked them if they have even 3 months of their monthly expenses saved up, you'll be very lucky if you get an answer of one person out of those 10 telling you that. It's something that we ignore. It's something that should be trivial. It's something that should be obvious, but people actually ignore it. People actually do not intentionally build emergency funds. So, what am I trying to say? Today is the day that you can start to intentionally plan towards an emergency fund. It will take time. Coming up with 3 to 6 months worth of an emergency fund requires a lot of money being put away. But again, it brings us back to our initial conversation on habit. Whether every month you are putting away 100,000 towards the emergency fund, whether you're putting away 400,000, that's fine. The point is, are you doing it religiously? Are you doing it in a disciplined manner? So I'll just move back. Sorry, I keep jumping between um, different presentations. Technology. Yes, so um, if we look at this particular computation, um, in this particular scenario, again, these are just example rates at which some of these debt products are available, the monthly rate and what that translates to in terms of 1 year. Yeah. Um, so imagine a scenario where you've borrowed 10 million shillings, yeah, at 10% every month. Yeah. Um, you're paying 10% every month over a period of 1 year, right? Um, that 10 million shillings is going to translate. So you borrow 10 million shillings and then you start to pay roughly 1.4 million every month. And by the time the year ends, you'll have paid about 7.6 million in interest, and your total repayment will be 17,600,000, right? So the argument there is maybe you needed it for something productive. Maybe you wanted to put it in your business. Maybe you wanted to, um, yeah, maybe you wanted to put it in your business. There's, however, the other scenario where you borrowed this money maybe to buy a car, right? Maybe you borrowed this money to pay fees. You borrowed this money to um, for something consumptive rather than productive, right? So over the 12 months, you have to pay back 17 million. You then get that same 10 million to invest in a trust, right? Um, you're maybe making 10% on the year. So monthly, that's coming to about 9%, sorry, 0.9%. At the end of 1 year, you've made about 11 million shillings, right? So 11 million shillings compared to the 17 million shillings that you're paying off on the same principle, 10 million, 10 million, leaves you in a net position of 6.5 million. So here you are saying, I have savings, I'm actively saving. I also take out debt to finance X, Y, and Z. But in terms of the holistic picture, where does it leave you? It leaves you in a net position, a negative position. So this is why I'm emphasizing that when you start this journey towards financial freedom, whether this is for the individual, whether this is for um, the business, it's very important to prioritize paying off your high interest debt. Yeah. Once you start paying off your high interest debt, move to the lowest, to the next high one, move to the next high one until you are left with sustainable debt that you can manage. Yeah. Um, all right. So Moving back to our PowerPoint. Okay, so now you are at a point where you've started a habit of managing your saving. You've started a habit of managing your expenses, monitoring and tracking them. You've eventually built up an emergency fund. You're paying off your debt. You're managing all of these things. Now you can really focus on investing. Now, what are the things you need to be aware of as you take this investment journey? You need to set targets. Belinda mentioned that she had a conversation previously around setting targets, defining um, goals, yeah, and working towards those goals. It's the same for your finances. It's not enough to just say, I want to invest 2 million shillings. What do you want to invest it for and why? Yeah, everything comes down to um, particular objectives. You need to have an objective, and that objective drives the reason for trying to invest. Yeah, you need to understand your liquidity needs. You need to be honest with yourself. Um, if you save too much, you're going to constrain your liquidity. And then when you constrain your liquidity, either you're going to tap into the savings, yeah, or you're going to borrow money. So if you're not honest with your liquidity needs, you're not going to be able to achieve those targets. The other point is you need to understand your risk appetite. Yeah. What are you willing to stomach? Yeah. Some people are willing to go and bet. Yeah. Very high risk, sometimes very high reward. Other times you do not want to recommend it. Yeah. Other people have a very um, low risk tolerance. They once things are going south, they switch off. Yeah. So these people are probably going to invest in something that's very low risk. Yeah. And then you also have to be thinking about your time horizon. So people just say, I want to save. But they are not saying, I want to save maybe. So, for example, let's say you want to buy a car. You set the target. I want to buy a car in 4 years' time. Those 4 years become your time horizon, right? And now you can properly plan for how you're going to save towards the car. Yeah, so it's very important to define your time horizon. So once you have been able to define your goals, these goals should then feed into your that tool that we saw on the earlier, yeah, where you saw savings and investments. You should put your goals. So if that objective for saving is an emergency fund, you should have an emergency fund line within your um, expenses management tool. If the goal is buying a car, have a line around the savings towards your car. If it's around putting money in a business, you want to start a boutique, yeah, selling clothes, then have a line within your saving and investment portion of your tracker that says boutique investment fund or something like that. And every month, you need to put a certain amount that is uh, going to go towards the investment in your business, the boutique. Yeah. And once you've set the targets, it's very important to look at investments together and not in isolation. So why do I say this? A lot of the time when I talk to people um, around saving, around investing, um, I find that people are thinking about every single opportunity in isolation. Yeah. So if someone says, I want to put money in a business, they think only in that lens. Uh, it's a phenomenon called narrow framing. So you're thinking only about that business. So you're thinking, I want to get 5 million shillings and put it in a business. Yeah. And then everything else is black, everything else is a vacuum. So, what is very dangerous about that? That prevents you from diversifying, that prevents you from managing risk, that prevents you from having a more realistic target. That prevents you from having a more realistic target across the period for which you are assessing your investments. Yes, someone has touched on narrow framing. So, narrow framing is the vice where you look at everything in isolation. Whether you have a unit trust investment, you look at that alone. Whether you have an investment in bonds, you look at that alone. If you buy land, you look at that alone. But rather, you should build the habit of looking at all your investments as one portfolio. Yeah. And then this gives you flexibility because you're able to move your portfolio around. You're able to rebalance your allocation. If you've put too much in the unit trust and you're not happy with the return that it's giving you of 10%, maybe pull some of that money out, buy an additional decimal or acre of land. Yeah. So you need to be looking at all these things together rather than looking at them individually. The other point is updating your allocation. So as time goes on, your income is going to probably grow. Your business is going to grow. Your salary is going to grow. This is going to give you the leeway to make adjustments to your 50, 30, 20, right? If suddenly your salary went from 1 million or your earnings month on month went from 1 million to 2 million, then maybe you can be able to increase your savings from 20% um, to let's say 50%, right? So that is a function of increased income, allowing you to reallocate the portfolio. Yeah. Because maybe now you're going to maintain your monthly expenses at the same rate, but now you want to be able to save more. Yeah. Because you have additional income you're making, you're able to reallocate the percentages. Yeah. Um, and then in terms of the weights, so this is around your risk, right? At every one point, because you're thinking about your investments together, you want to say, how much do I have in my emergency fund? How much do I have? Because that's your cash. How much do I have in a unit trust or in a savings fixed deposit account? How much do I have there? How much do I have in my business? How much do I have in real estate? Maybe you've bought a plot of land. Yeah. And you can always sell or buy. Yeah. You can always move this allocation around based on how you feel about um, based on where you will be at any given point in time. Yeah, how you'll feel about the risk participating in one asset class more than the other. Yeah, and then another fundamental thing, especially for youth, is um, updating your portfolio risk tolerance. So you'll always know that what's important is again compounding, and because of compounding time, yeah, the younger you are, people would argue the more risk you should be able to take on. So you'll find that maybe the younger you are allocating more towards buying up the land, yeah, which is riskier than just putting money in a fixed deposit. Yeah. Um, but as you get older and you're getting towards maybe retirement, you're now thinking about leaving something for your kids. You start to see that you need to embrace a bit of um, uh, you need to embrace a risk averse mindset. Yeah, so you start to participate in less risky opportunities. But what's important here for someone who's let's say 25 years old, for someone who's 30 years old, you have almost 25 years where you can build these funds, the funds that will take you towards financial freedom. You need to take advantage of that time. How do you take advantage of that time? You start now. Yeah, you start now. You don't lose any more time. You take advantage of compounding. Yeah, compounding over those 30 years. And that's where you'll start to see that you can get to a point where you can achieve this financial freedom target. Again, the target is not one number. The target is different from one person to the other. Yeah, based on our behaviors, based on our character, based on our personalities, etc. And additionally, the target is moving. Yeah, if tomorrow you have a child, maybe the target changes. If you have another child, the target changes, etc. Yeah. Um, so Moses Mugisha is requesting that we delve more on narrow framing and risk tolerance using some practical examples. All right. So I think thank you for that, Moses.
That's all, Kevin. We will have a time for questions and answers. I would like you to, we have about 15 minutes to go. So I would like you to
to wrap up.
To wrap up so that we can
Yeah.
Deal with some questions from the audience.
All right. Thank you, Belinda. I'm actually coming to the end. I just have one case to share and then we can get into the questions. All right. So just to stress the point on on thinking about your investments in a combination rather than thinking about them in isolation, right? Yes, so you'll talk to someone, you'll tell them, you'll talk to someone and ask them, how are you investing your money? How are you saving your money? And then they'll tell you, I have a business. My clothing business makes me this amount of money, X. And then maybe you can be able to understand what kind of return they made over a year. So for example, let's look at this. If you invested in your clothing business, 4 million shillings at the start of the year, and then you made 600,000 in profit at the end of the year. That translates to roughly 15% return on your equity investment. Yeah. So a person, if you talk to someone who has invested that money in their clothing business, they'll look at the 15% and then they'll say, why would I put any money in, say, a unit trust? It's going to only make me 10.5%. Yeah. Same example, if a lot of people are always arguing about like land versus a car, land versus treasury bills, I always see on Twitter a conversation around invest in land or invest in T-bills. Yeah. So the thing is, why not do both, right? Because the argument here is that, okay, I bought land, I was able to flip it at the end of the year. I bought it at 5 million, I flipped it and sold it at 6.5 million. So I made 1.5 million in profit, which is 30% return. Then they'll say, what did you make in your unit trust? And that other person will tell them, I made 10%. I put in 1 million, I made 105,000 shillings at the end of the year. And then the land person will say, so why wouldn't you just put your money in land? Why wouldn't you invest in land and make 30%? So when you're looking at these things in isolation, it makes sense, right? 30% is greater than 10%, 30% is better than 10%. But then what that is neglecting is risk. What that is neglecting is the realities of life. You never know what could happen, right? So you buy the land at the end of the year, you go to sell it, you find out the title doesn't belong to you, it's not in your names. Suddenly you don't make back the 5 million. What do you have to fall back on? Zero, right? So you've just lost 5 million shillings. Why not rather put some money towards the land initiative, real estate, put some money in the unit trust, put some money in your business, and then at the end of the year, your conversation should be around what was my weighted return across all the investments that I did. Yeah, rather than saying what was the return I made from land, what was the return I made from the unit trust or the fixed deposit account, what was the return I made from my business. Yeah, because in this scenario, if you look at, if say, let's say, you only manage to sell the land at 4 million shillings. Yeah, so you make, let's say you make a 20% loss, right? You make a 20% loss on the land. Yeah. So because in this case, so what's important to think of here is, so in this particular case, you bought land at 5 million, but at the end of the year, you sold it at 4 million. Maybe you needed to sell it urgently. So you've made a 20% loss. When you look at the avenue of buying land individually, it's a 20% loss across the year. However, when you look at all three investments you made in the entire year, the loss is only 3%. Yeah. So the argument here is thinking about investing in terms of a whole portfolio, every single thing, whether it's business, whether it's a savings account, whether it's buying land, etc. When you think about these things together, you're able to plan with, while thinking about a weighted average return. Yeah. And you're able to diversify your risk. Yeah. So for example, if let's say you put, let's say that portfolio is equal, right? So you put 5 million in land, 5 million in a unit trust, and 5 million in your clothing business. Yeah. You can see that even if the land, you make a loss of 20%, you'll still, your overall investment at the end of the year is positive. Okay. So what's my emphasis there? My emphasis is um, do not think about your investments in an isolation, but think about them together. Yeah. Coming back here, when you think about saving and investment, you should be putting away money in terms of the things that we've looked at here, whether that is buy land, whether that is invest in a unit trust, whether that is invest in your clothing business. The money that you're saving should be these lines. So where you see emergency fund, extra date payments, all your business, your investing lines should be here. So that you know that every month I want to put away 100,000 to put me in a position where I can buy land at the end of the year. I want to put away 200,000 that puts me in a position to buy twice the amount of land at the end of the year. That's the kind of thinking that you need. That's the kind of mentality that you need to work towards achieving your financial freedom. Yeah, so I think at this point I'd like to open the floor to any questions that the audience may have, but also just to re-emphasize habit, patience, and the power of compounding. Compounding through time will make that initial effort be rewarded over the long term. Thank you, and over to you, Belinda.
Wow, well, Kevin, I could listen to you for a whole day. You are very methodical in your work. You patiently go through these facts with so much caution, so much clarity. I know we have almost extended our time, but I'm sure we are all happy with just how you have unpacked this topic about money. I want to thank you so much. I didn't know where we are going to end, but you have thrown big things towards us, and we have a challenge. It's good that it's the start of the year. We have a challenge, and I also like the fact that you have guided us. So Kevin, let's start by you sharing your number in the chat. Please type it for people. That is if you want us to call you. Please do share your number. The other request was you made a promise to share that Excel document. Is it free, Kevin?
Yes, it's free. It's
Okay.
free.
So please let us, please, I don't know, are you going to share it in the chat? Are you able to, I think you can do an attachment in the chat. And I wish you could put Do you have a tracker on that document so that we can know how many people are using it? You never know, at one time you may want to monetize it.
Yeah, okay.
Would you?
Yes, so my proposal would be, I think everyone who joined is
Yeah.
probably, their information is probably captured. So
Yeah.
maybe at the end of this, I could upload it and
Okay.
have Enterprise send it to every single person
Okay.
that
Perfect.
joined the call.
That
Yes.
joined the conversation. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Kevin, for doing that. You have talked about things that have stayed with me. The prospect of habits. It's really we have to deal with ourselves. I think before we even do any financial literacy, we need to have a workshop on ourselves and money. That is a whole it's a whole learning experience that we have to go through. And I absolutely love the concept of compounding. I think for most of the investment workshops that we have attended, no one has tactfully and exhaustively explained the aspect of compounding the way that you have. And I want to thank you so much for doing that. I saw someone's hand up. Okay, I think they put it down. Kevin is here. We have another 15 minutes, so we'll go until 10:45. Oh yes, Kukundakwe, I'm going to ask you to unmute your microphone. Let's see where you are.
Thank you. Thank you for
There
the
you are.
presentation. I'm
Thank you.
Kukundakwe, a poultry farmer. Kindly explain to me again the aspect of the time for the increment of money reducing with that compounding thing. I didn't quite understand it properly. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Violet. It will probably be easier if I share it. Just a second. All right. So, yes, just to answer you, Violet. So the idea behind this is compounding, right? The point is when you save 1,000,000 shillings and you make, I think for ease, let me just make this 10%. Okay, so when you save 1,000,000 shillings and at the end of the first year, you make 100,000 shillings. Yeah. The key is do not take out the 100,000 shillings, right? So over the next year, over year number 2, the amount that is going to be invested is now going to be 1.1 million shillings. Yeah. And then that's going to continue. So for the next year, so with compounding, interest earns interest, right? So every year you are investing a lot more money than you did the previous year at the same interest rate. So what that means is as the money keeps building, think of like a rolling stone, like a snowball effect. Yeah. Like as the money continues to increase, the rate at which it will earn interest will also increase. So this is because you started with 1 million, you earned 100,000. Then 1,100,000 and 110,000, which is 10,000 shillings more than the 100,000 you earned the previous year. Same for the next year, you will make 121,000, which is 11,000 shillings than the interest you first earned. So what you'll notice is that it will take you 7 years to double, yeah, to get to 2 million shillings, yeah, because the compounding effect is a bit slower at the start. Yeah, you're not starting with a lot of money and there is no interest that has earned interest, or the interest that is earning interest is very small. So it will take longer. It will take 7 years, right, for you to do 2 million shillings. Yeah. But now, because over time, year 8, year 9, year 10, the earning interest is increasing, you'll be able to actually make another 1 million shillings in a much shorter time. Yeah, you will see that from 1.9 million, you will get to 2.8 million, yeah, within about roughly 4 years. Yeah. And again, because of compounding, the time will just keep reducing and reducing and reducing. So the challenge to you, Violet, is can you stay the course? Yeah. When you start investing the money, can you leave it there? Can you reinvest the interest you make? And can you get to your 7-year point? Of course, it could be different given the different scenarios under which you're investing. Can you get to this point? And then can you get to this point? Yeah, because as you do that, that's where you'll start to see this curve reflected. What this curve is showing you is that things are slow at the start, but they keep increasing in speed. There's acceleration over time. So that's really the principle around compounding, and that's what feeds into that presentation of the money will increase faster as time goes on. I hope that clarifies it.
It's very clear, but then also, in addition to that, Kevin, if
Yeah.
on top of investing your 1 million shillings at the start, if you keep on putting 100,000, the
Yeah.
time doesn't it?
Yes.
If
Yes.
habit for investing keeps on growing, that time for you doubling your investment reduces. Okay?
Yes. Exactly.
That is
Exactly.
really encouraging. Violet, I hope you are happy with that. Kevin, before we forget, please write your number in the chat. While I
I've
get
shared
that,
my work and personal email.
did we miss it?
I don't know if I can pin
Okay,
it.
there it is. Okay.
Yes.
But the number is not on. There's a Augustine at gmail.com and ASIGMA, but I think we missed the contacts.
All right, let me share the contacts.
Let's have the number on while I get to Dr. Senoga. Good morning, Doctor. I am unmuting your microphone. Yes, Doctor, good morning.
Yes, good morning and thank you so much, Kevin. I think Kevin there is rightfully hesitant to share the number because it can really be overwhelming. I can imagine.
Yes,
But definitely, I would like to contact you because you know for guidance and you know all these things. Unfortunately, they are not taught in school. I wish the new curriculum would include them because we need them. Yes, particularly this 50, 30, 20 divisions. Yes, it works very, very well if someone is earning maybe 1 million, 2 million. Yes, but what I wanted to add on is that as the money keeps increasing, you know how this 30% of wants always expand. So there should be some discipline that as you are becoming from whatever, you're becoming a CEO now, you are becoming, and the salary is becoming more, so the adjustments also goes accordingly up to the time when you actually save 50%, because you don't need to spend, it's a big amount just to spend. So that's what I want. It depends on the adjustment would depend on how much you are earning, and of course your goals in life, and your time. Where are you in life? Are you 50? Are you for example, some of us need to save 50% to hit the targets and so on. Maybe you could speak on that a little. But what I wanted you to speak on, probably to clarify a little more, is more of the business owners. It's not so automatic. For a salary, yes, it comes. But then you have bought a box of soap in Chikubo and you've sold it and you've made this difference. And that's now what the earning is. So now that's where the question is. I'm a business owner and I'm selling a service. So is it still same 30, 50? So please come in on that. And thank you very much.
All right. Thank you, Doctor. So for while I'm explaining this, I'll also acknowledge that I'm nervous about getting too technical, but I'll give it a shot. So maybe before I dive into that, Dr. Senoga, I'll give you an example. I have a friend who has been running a business, a cleaning business. So if you need your couches cleaned, or if you need your home cleaned, he'll be there and he'll help you with, he'll provide the service, right? And when he breaks down his business model, right? He'll rent some of the machinery that he needs at a very low cost. Then he has a few casual guys that he pays, yeah, as the deal comes, and these guys will go do the cleaning service. He'll pay them. He'll return the machinery that he borrowed, and then once he has paid for the renting the machinery and paid the guys, the rest of the money will be his profit for the day. So I think on average he was making margins of about 30%. Yeah. So if you are thinking of like a 200K contract, this guy was keeping about 60,000 shillings per engagement. Yeah. So I told him, man, actually, in the work that we do, we engage with a lot of businesses, but not a lot of these businesses are making that margin, 30% or as bottom line, right? So your business must actually be doing very well. So I asked him, how much did you make last year, for example? And he could not give me the answer. So the reason being that the money is just moving. Like the deal comes, a few phone calls are made, payments are made, that money goes back into some mix of money and it's no longer associated with the business. So maybe he uses the money for different things. Yeah. So he was not able to show me that in January is my best month. I made this much. February is my best. It was my worst month. I made this much. He had no way of tracking that. And what that meant is he could not even say what his profit over a year was because he could only remember the individual deals. Yeah. Now, how does this tie into financial that mastering your finances? The first thing is this business owner has a very good business model. Yeah, but he does not know, for example, what his profit margin is over a year. He doesn't know what his monthly profit margin is because he's only operational, but he does not go and manage the business finances. Yeah. So what should this guy do? This guy needs to first of all start tracking his expenditures. Yeah. His expenditures are all going to include the money that he takes for renting the machinery to clean the different clients' premises. His expenditures are going to include paying the casual laborers that provide the service of cleaning. Yeah. So ideally, from the perspective of his business, his needs are the rent money as well as the casual laborers, right? And then you move to the next step, wants. So if, for example, he decided that he wants to make his casual laborers feel good, they've been working hard, he wants to take them out, give them some entertainment, boost their morale, that is a category that could form his wants. But now savings and investments has to come out of the profit. What are you making? That 30%, the 60,000, yeah? What are you using that for? You should be able to say that on this 60,000 shillings that I made, that profit, this is where my savings and wants portion is going to come from. Do I want to reinvest in the business? Maybe over the long term, it does not make sense to hire the machinery every time he gets a deal. Maybe he should buy machinery. Yeah. So if now he thinks about that 60,000, he should be able to say, I will use 30,000 from the 60,000 as saving for eventually buying the machine that I used to clean the business, so that I own the machine rather than rent it. Yeah. And then maybe the remaining 30,000, I can reward myself. Yeah. Or I can now put that in an investment venture. I can put that in a fixed deposit. I can put that in a unit trust. You still get back to the same conversation of where can you invest the money. So maybe in summary, I would say the needs would be that operating expenditure. The wants would be, again, there would be some of luxury expenses that businesses can do without. And then the savings and investments would come from the profits. Do you want to reinvest in the business, or do you want to take the money out of the business, or do you just want to save that money so that it can generate additional money for you? I hope that's clear, Dr. James.
Okay, thank you so much, Kevin. I will not let this discussion end without you talking about black tax. Okay? So all of us have our experiences. I want you to tell us
Yeah.
around your black tax, Kevin, not but yours, before we come to the end of this discussion.
Yeah, I think I saw one of my cousins on the call, so I'll be very careful. But yeah, I think black tax it's unavoidable for most of us. Whether you grew up here in Kampala, whether you um, moved here later on in your adult life, a lot of us have to deal with black tax, and for the most part, uh, it's it, it comes down to honesty. So in my particular situation, um, I don't want to call it black tax, but there are obligations that you have month on month. Yeah, and most of these will come out of um, your own initiative. Yeah, you just want to give back to your mother. You want to give back to your dad. You want to maybe give back to an uncle. But then also once in a while, maybe a relative will reach out and they need some support. Yeah, maybe their kid needs to go to school, etc. So what's important here? You need. I find that planning around black tax is much better than waiting for um, an event to happen. So, if, for example, you've been tracking your finances and you've noticed a trend that maybe every month approximately 200,000 shillings goes towards this sort of black tax. Maybe you contribute, I don't know, 50,000 shillings to um, buying some of the food at home. There's an uncle that you give maybe 100,000 shillings. So you'll start to see a trend, and you'll notice that over time, that black tax component maybe on average is 300,000 shillings. Yeah. Um, the next step then is to decide whether you want that in your wants or in your needs. Yeah, because this could vary for different people. And once you know that, you can budget and plan for it. Yeah, so you can put that in your needs and say 300,000 of anything that I make this month will go towards any instance that black tax arises. Yeah. Why is it important to do it that way? If, for example, an uncle comes and says, "Oh, I need to buy, I don't know, I want to buy a goat, grow it, and then sell it at the market, blah blah blah, that kind of thing." If the goat is going to cost way more than the cap that you've set for yourself of 300,000 shillings, be honest with them, be honest with yourself, and stick to your guns. Yeah. So the conversation needs to be, I have 200,000 shillings available. This is irrespective of whether they need 400,000 or they need 200,000. I have 200,000 shillings available. This is what I can offer you this month. Yeah, it's sort of a take it or leave it. Of course, you don't say that, you come off rude, but that has to be the kind of conversation you have. So you're saying the money that I can give you will make some, it will give you some mileage towards achieving what you're trying to achieve. You're looking for 500,000, I'm giving you 200,000. Maybe you can find 300,000 from another avenue. You've still supported, you've still succumbed to the black tax, but from your perspective, from your business and from your personal individual perspective, you have to set those caps. You have to set those ceilings, whereby you do not go beyond them, because you also have your own personal goals and development objectives. Yeah. So for me, that's it. I have a number and I do not exceed that number, but I know that every month I have to make particular contributions in particular areas.
Great. Thank you so much, Kevin. This conversation has to go on at another time. I don't think we have exhausted it, and that is the good thing. I'm sure we'll invite you again to expand this topic of strategies for growing our money. I want to thank you so much for your time and for being very generous with your knowledge, being very candid and very meticulous in your presentation. I'm going to thank you for sharing your contact as well. I hope it is okay to call you. If we are too many, charge for it, for your time. Yes, we are going to. And also thank you for promising to share the Excel presentation that we will share with all the members who have attended the call today. So thank you guys for being here today. This series has extended because Kevin we just couldn't let him go, and he still hasn't exhausted all that he has to tell us. But yes, I hope that you have got something that you can do starting today or tomorrow, or the month is ending. March is a good time for you to get that habit to help you start saving your money. Remember the element of compounding, it's magical, and let's make sure that we get to some sense of financial freedom in spite of the black tax. Okay. I would also want to remind you that you can register for a business health check. We can come and check out your business. The link is in the chat. There's also the entrepreneurship training workshop. The link is also shared in the chat. And we are going to share the document that Kevin has promised us, and this recording can be shared and viewed again on our YouTube channel. I am personally going to go pick it and watch it again, and probably invite Kevin at another forum to explain these aspects to us very, very well. Thank you so much for attending. Kevin, please give us your parting shot before we close this series.
Yes, thank you so much, Belinda. Thank you to the enterprise team. This was a very good opportunity for me. I'll tell you, I was nervous. I don't know if you could see it, but I'm happy that I was able to do it, and I would be happy to do it again if need be. For those with questions, please reach out, preferably via email, and I'll do my best to answer as many of the questions as I can. Yeah, thank you, and have a nice day.
Kevin, you did very well. We didn't notice any anxiety. We just saw you trying to deliver your content very well. So it's 12 minutes to 11. Thank you again for being here. Thank you for inviting your friends. I know you have a big load to bite on for the rest of the day. Do sit down, make those goals, employ those strategies, and let's grow our money this year. So until next month, the next time we talk will be in March 2025. I wish you a great Thursday, a great end to the month of February, and good morning from Enterprise Uganda.